The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the hosts and guests, and not necessarily those of the staff and management of WWDB-TV.
Get yourselves together. Right. Stand up and live your life. Right. Get yourselves together. Right. Hands up high.
Hey! Welcome to the Rise Above Show. I am Joe Perroni.
I'm Heidi Mancini. And I want to introduce our special guest, Jea Jung, today.
Thank you for having me.
Your CEO
Elevation.
Great to see you.
CEO and founder of City Athletic Gym.
Yeah.
CEO and founder of JBells.
Yes.
And you are involved with the Super League. You're hosting that.
I'm the CEO and founder of also Super League. Yeah.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
I learned something new today because I tried to find that information
Oh, yeah.
and I wasn't sure.
We buried it.
Awesome.
I want to stay behind the scenes with that one. But I did found it. I conceived it a year ago, maybe. I know we talked about it, Joe, at some point, like early on. But I founded it. I am the CEO. My brother's my partner. And we have grown this company at quite a blistering pace, actually, just in the last few months. Actually, it hasn't even been a year yet. We're in 21 countries, and we're up to a couple thousand athletes now.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the thing that shocks me all the time is that, like, even now, right, you took the time out of your day to come here, and it seems like whenever you're just alone for a little bit and you get your mind going, whatever you come out of that space that you hide in, when you come out, the world changes. Like, every time I talk to you, you're doing something that's like hitting countries.
Yeah.
Like, when I talk, I'm lucky I talk to a couple of friends, right? Like, but every time you do something, you've reinvent the wheel. So how does that happen exactly?
Well, I think that I do I have an intention and I make an effort to make an impact. You know, whatever it is I'm doing. I think the advantage that I have now is that I happen to sit in the middle of two great eras. We had the great era of how we grew up. You know, you roll up your sleeves, you do the work, you do deep work, you focus. And then here comes the era of technology, of distraction, of devices, of of media. But I feel I'm very lucky because I grew up in the era of hard work.
Right.
But now I know how to utilize the era of technology and media and to leverage that. So I think having the advantage of both of those perspectives is probably the most powerful tool that I have as a business person right now.
Wow. So
Yeah.
you've embraced technology.
Not only have I embraced it, but I feel like technology is the problem, and I want to be part of the solution. And to best be part of the solution to that problem is to actually use that technology to deliver the best message, and we can get into that. But the message and the mission of Super League is not what people think it is. It's really not, and it started out as being this affront to bodybuilding,
Right.
this attack on the IFBB, and they got their panties in a big fat wad, and it was actually kind of comical, to be honest with you, because it was never about that. And I think people are starting to realize that this is much more about building athlete community, reaching the other 99%, reaching people that maybe wouldn't otherwise walk into a gym. And that to me is the coolest thing, because it's not about the elite athletes. We do have incredible elite athletes. We have elite bodybuilders, powerlifters, CrossFitters. And as we continue to expand the offerings of our sport, we're going to virtualize soccer here pretty soon. We're also virtualizing football and basketball, which sounds weird, but just imagine if someone, instead of having to go and buy the uniform, go to practices, do all the stuff to the schools, they could get together with their buddies on an app, play in Super League, hoops, we're going to call it, submit a score, and they're ranked in the world with other 16-year-olds, 15-year-olds, 14-year-olds in the world instantly. That is the future of sport. I'll say it here right now. The future of sport is not what we think of it. where people gather together in these stadiums. All these kids all around the world are practicing in their high schools and trying to earn their way into the varsity team and try to get a college scholarship and trying to get drafted. Those days are numbered. I'm going to say it right now. And I'm going to be part of the machine that brings that down.
Wow. So let's go out on a limb here. I'm going to say you're the only person saying this.
Saying what?
That all this is going to be changing.
Really?
And you're at the, I mean,
I'm the only one saying it?
well, I don't know, at that level, right? Like, I haven't heard anybody say that. I still think
Let me tell you something that
you're
will
playing
shock you.
chess, though, right? And most people...
I always play chess.
Right, and everybody in the IFBB...
They're playing checkers.
They're playing checkers. So that's what I'm saying. It's
not
it's
even-
really interesting.
I have no interest in playing checkers.
Right.
So, you know, I've moved on to some bigger chess matches. The biggest being, I'll tell you something that'll shock you guys. You know, so we recently got invited to a big high school here locally to bring Super League to their football team, because the kids, they don't take their conditioning seriously, and they should, because it's the difference between winning and losing games.
Right.
It really is, especially in a sport like football. Maybe not basketball, maybe not volleyball, but in football, the weight room makes a difference between wins and losses. The kids don't take their training seriously, so they invited us in. They said, expect about 25, 30 kids. 50 kids showed up.
Wow.
Not only did they show up, but they really showed up. Like, they got into this app that we created because it creates a competition among a group of people, whether it's the worldwide leaderboard, which you're on, Heidi, or if it's just among a group of kids. If you gamify it, all of a sudden they take it seriously. So we had 50 kids that had never taken their conditioning seriously, but two things shocked me, like really shocked me. It's not easy to shock me, you know. There are 3 seniors on that entire football team. 3. And I said, why are only 3 seniors? Because when we're in school, if you're a senior and you're an athlete, you're on the football team.
Right, of course.
In fact, the best guys on the team are seniors. There's a handful of juniors and sophomores, but they're seniors. Well, the kids have better things to do these days. Does that surprise you?
Yes and no. I mean, yeah, it does actually. But I'm so interested in how you were able to take something that's a major problem, right? Like, let's say, I think there's a severe lack of masculinity going on right now in this country, to where my brain would say that there's lack of seniors on a football team because it's a tough, brutal, masculine sport, and they're going to quit.
We're talking about 2 different problems. They're
Yeah.
2 major problems, but the feminization of America is a problem.
Right.
That happened. That started a long time ago, and we're at a point now where everyone's afraid to do anything. Everyone's afraid to say anything. It's got to be politically correct. That's not how humans work. There's a balance between humans, men and women. That is natural, and what's been created here is artificial, it's forced, and it's dysfunctional. And now we're seeing it. You know, sorry, I'm going off a lot of different tangents here, but you know, I have so many young men that I counsel in my office. You know, my office in the gym is like a counseling.
I assumed it was.
You know? So I've had so many young men come to me and say, gosh, I just don't feel like a man. You know, I was raised by a single mom. All the teachers I had were women.
We just had this conversation.
And so they have actually taken on the characteristics and the principles of women, which is completely fine in the context of also having that male counterpart, that masculine counterpart. So, you know, you want to take that freight train, okay? Now here's this other freight train coming in, and this one has got our kids addicted to devices and social media. And I say addiction because it's dopamine.
Right.
It's dopamine, just like alcohol, just like gambling. And, you know, on a spectrum of dopamine concentration, it's just under cocaine. It's just under cocaine. When you get that like or that alert on your phone, you get some likes on your Instagram post, that's dopamine, and it's powerful. And, you know, my 2-year-old niece knows how to go on my brother's phone, unlock it, go on an app, and start playing around. And when she doesn't have access to it, she gets upset. We have an entire generation of children that are literally growing up addicted to something that's highly addictive, that is proven to permanently disable your ability to focus. And the number one skill you need in life is focus if you want to accomplish anything.
Right.
Whether it's in the gym, in business, in school, like if you don't have focus, you're not able to just laser beam for like an hour at a time or 2 hours at a time, you've got a major problem. And so, so going back to Super League, so we went on site with a school. I realized kids are checking out of physical activity. They're checking out of sports. And the head coach's office is right next door. It'd be like if this were the weight room and the coach's office was over there. So he heard all the kids just getting worked up. And so he's probably thinking, what the hell is going on in there? So he walks in and he's like, I don't know what the hell's going on in here, but I want to see this every week because I've never seen these kids work this hard. You had kids puking, they're passing out. And it's like they never worked that hard before. And so it did prove concept for me for the league as a business that we can apply to younger kids, not just elite athletes, but kids, and kids of all sizes and shapes, because they had a pretty ragtag collection of, what was that movie back in the day? The Bad News Bears? Was it the Bad News Bears?
Yeah, I remember that.
You know, the collection of kids that made a baseball team and they won. Nothing against these kids, but it was kind of like that. Like they kind of like assembled the kids who are willing to play in football. And it's like, all right, kids, you're gonna lift weights, you're gonna put on these pads. And so the level of checkout of kids in sports, and I realized, and I learned it wasn't just this school, but it's widespread. I talked to a lot of friends that are in the NFL. I talked to a friend that's in the Navy SEALs. I talked to a friend that's in the high school circuit, and they're all saying the same thing. You need about 100 soldiers, good soldiers, to get 1 or 2 good SEALs from them, maybe 3. The pool's not there anymore. You talk to any military recruiter, they can't get kids to sign up for the military because it's just like, I don't want to do anything that's gonna, take me away from my addiction for more than an hour at a time.
Right, and they might have to not be comfortable for a few minutes. Right?
And it hurts. Yeah. So, so Super League is something that started out as this bodybuilding derivative, but it's turned into a multi-sport virtualization product experience that we can share not just with athletes, but with also the ones that need it the most, I think, which are the kids.
So you took this one train, the feminization of our society.
Yeah. Heading
towards cell phone addiction.
Right.
Social media addiction. And then created this whole new thing.
Well, where the league came from wasn't necessarily... It all started because I'm just in this bubble, and I'll be the first to admit, I was stuck in this bubble, My mental breadth was defined by the bodybuilding, gym, fitness world. And I was pretty good at it, but I was still in a bubble.
Right.
But it took for me to actually think like, okay, how do we actually make our sport at the highest level better? And then that led me down a few other rabbit holes that made me realize there's something wrong. There's something seriously wrong with our youth today. And what is the problem? Well, there's 2 major problems. One is the imbalance of masculinity and femininity, and then the other is this. I mean, it's an epidemic, I would call it, because it reaches everybody. I know people of all income levels, of all ethnic backgrounds, of all ages that are addicted to. I mean, my dad just got addicted recently. He got on Facebook, he posted a video of himself, and every time I talk to him, he's like, ooh, I'm up to like 100,000 views. I'm like, Dad, you're an addict.
Tell everybody who your dad is, by the way. So
my dad is my dad's a very famous Taekwondo master. He was one of the original guys that brought Taekwondo to this country. He was maybe the 3rd or 4th guy, and so in Taekwondo circles, he's very well known. But I think a lot of what I learned about what I'm doing with the league, I learned from my dad. Because in Taekwondo, it attracts all walks of life. We're not just talking about people that want to go out and fight. We're talking about people that just want to get active. They want to maybe, learn some skills, but not for the purpose of fighting, but for the purpose of community, for the purpose of, maybe living out their life principles of discipline, integrity, respect. It's a live format to actually live out the principles that you believe in. So growing up, my dad had all different types: men, women, old, young, a girl on crutches, a guy in his 80s. Like everyone came in and they started at white belt, and you earn your way through the ranks. Everyone has to earn their way through. But in the process of doing that, we talked about trauma bonding.
Right.
It does bond people in a way that, there's still people that I go back home and see my dad, and there's people that I remember when I was like a kid that was in Taekwondo class with me, and he's still there helping my dad out, painting the room or whatever, and just so, it creates like lifelong friendships. And so, I hope to do the same thing, honestly. I hope to do the same thing with fitness.
Well,
Yeah.
Not to
Go ahead.
interrupt you, I was going to say something about the work ethic. You mentioned earlier about the work ethic, and what I've observed in bodybuilding, and I'm new to all this too, only 10, 12 years into it, so I was old when I got started, older. The work ethic behind bodybuilding and different avenues of that it's an entitlement that I've noticed that athletes get into whatever they're doing, and they expect to do better than someone else. And one of the things I noticed with the league was, because you're competing against yourself, you realize very quickly, because I've done it a few times and I'll continue to, what your strengths and your weaknesses are. So it becomes a competition against your own abilities, and you work towards this goal where you had mentioned earlier the kids are not really working at much other than the phone system.
Right. So that speaks to actually one of the original reasons of Super League is the subjectivity, the judging, and I don't know if I don't know if we've talked about this before, but the vibration and the frequency at which that resonates. Where does vanity resonate on the scale of human emotion? Pretty low. Where does jealousy or judgment or vendetta, where do those things resonate on the spectrum of human emotions? Very, very low. Where does self-improvement resonate? Where does achievement resonate?
Self-esteem.
Self-esteem, very high. So, if you want to talk about just the frequency at which things vibrate, walk into a bodybuilding show, walk into a powerlifting meet. It has a negative energy to it, and nobody can dispute that. It simply does. It's just a fact. It's just a fact.
I am so glad you said that, because I feel that way. But I feel when I say it, I feel like people are looking at me like I'm being negative. And I think people who are competing, they have this fake sense of we're all in it together. No, you're not. I've competed since 1982, and I have never felt comfortable at a bodybuilding show against anybody. It seems like they're all in their own corner. They all hate each other, and that's really it. And from even a perspective from the audience, there's no cheering going on,
right?
Because nobody wants to cheer for somebody that you're not connected to, because it might sway somebody. So you go out there and do your posing routine, and if I listen real close, I might be able to hear my mom in the back, and maybe Heidi, like with a little bit of a clap. But everybody else is dead silent, because they're like, "Oh my God, no, my friend is coming up next."
But the league thing, it promotes that community thing that Jay was saying, because when we do these events, we're all there helping the next person or the person in front of us. You can do this. Come on, you're tough. You can do it. Right. So you do have, and we don't, and have these people. I don't know. I've never seen before, but I might have seen them around the gym. Yeah. But there is community. We're helping each other. We're supporting, and then we're also recruiting our friends and other people in our lives to say, hey, you could do this too. You should try it. At least give it a shot.
Right.
And so far, the few of my clients that have tried it, my daughter's going to probably do it this weekend with me. They like it. They're scared to death at first because they're like, I'm not good. I was too. When you asked, I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to do this. And yet you get addicted to that because you go, okay, this is my total score. Next time I'm going to beat it by at least another 100, whatever it is you do.
Right.
So it gets all different ages, and people start supporting each other and inviting people into the event, which is really nice.
I love it. I'm honestly like the most flattered by it, the most shocked by it, because of course this was my objective and my intention. But to see it happening, it's really awesome. It just makes me feel good.
Yeah, that the one show that you had, what was that? It wasn't the Combine. What did you call it? It was the original Super League.
Oh yeah, the original Super League.
Yeah, the whole room's filled with people. And I remember going over to you, going, "That's pretty cool, isn't it?" Because you were by yourself, you had an idea.
Yeah.
And then you're watching all this happen, and it's the coolest thing ever.
It was a lot of fun, but I think about how far we've come since then, and that original idea was awesome, and I loved every minute of it. But I realized I can keep improving on it, actually. So that's what we're doing now. We're trying to improve on that. We have another big event coming up in September of this year. That'll be World War. And so we're going to have all the athletes from all over the world come in, compete against each other, and we've got some killer athletes. We've got world-class powerlifters that will put up some major scores in power, which is the 3-rep max, and then combine. We've got some like major like CrossFitters that are kind of crossing over, and we have some football guys that are crossing over, coming and doing combine, and then we're going to have one more division in fitness that we haven't announced yet, but that's coming out in the next week or two. Yeah.
Now, are you still doing the body scan?
We're not doing that anymore. It's just too clunky.
Okay.
You know, for us to really reach as many people as possible, we have to have a format that has a very low barrier to entry, can be done anywhere, can be done by yourself.
Right.
So what we did is we took that original concept, and so I mentioned I just started working out again.
Today.
Yesterday. So I'm really sore today.
He's really sore.
I was going to go to the gym this morning and lift again. I just didn't have it in me. I was just too sore. But what we did was we took that original concept and we did it, and we made it in a way that can be delivered to anyone in the world. As long as you have access to a basic gym, you can do it. You can compete. You can be part of the community. But I thought, it's the best way to test this is I'm going to test it on myself. And so I actually put up a score yesterday. Decent score for an old fat guy, not bad. But I realized, okay, there is actually a way to take that original bodybuilding concept that I had and to create a, so it's going to sit in the middle of power and combine. It's going to sit in the middle of what people would understand as powerlifting and CrossFit, right? And what is that? And so I'll share that with you guys. You'll be the first to know. But I'll bring it out in a week or two. Yeah.
Excellent.
Well,
all right.
I'm going to break just for a minute. We have to go to break, and we'll be right back.
Okay.
I'm the world's worst cleaning lady. I'm here in your home having a pretty spectacular Tuesday. But I don't notice the loose rug at the top of your stairs. And that's about to become an issue for me. And if you've got the wrong home insurance coverage, my medical bills could get expensive. So get Allstate.
Welcome back to the Rise Above Show. I am Joe Perroni.
I'm Heidi Mancini.
And our special guest.
Jea Jung.
Thanks for having me, guys. Great to be here.
So, Jay, you talked about your father a little bit.
Yeah.
And as masculine men that we both are.
Yeah, he's a man's man.
We usually have these really difficult relationships with our dads because on one side, they teach us everything.
Yeah.
And they're great role models, although they might not have had the most empathy and care along the way, but they needed to do what they needed to do.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, we spend a lot of our life trying to get their approval, which seems to be sometimes a pretty elusive thing. So I'm wondering, has that been your experience, and how do you feel about that?
I recently had a conversation with my dad. within the last few months, actually. And there was a point about, I guess it was about the time I started Super League, where, you know, I realized that the easiest, most effective thing to do is just to like blanket forgive him, honestly. And I read that somewhere like years ago, like something every man should do. Every man should forgive their dad, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, that made sense to me. And so I started thinking about everything is relative, you know, everything's so relative. So my dad's dad was tough, like really tough. He makes us look like snowflakes, you know? But my dad's dad, so my dad spoke to his dad maybe 3 or 4 times in his life. Literally had 3 or 4 conversations in their life.
Wow.
So relative, so you got to think.
And they lived in the same household.
Yes.
Oh,
Wow.
man.
That'd be tough.
So, but you got to, but this is a different culture. This is a different era. This is a different, I mean, we're talking about being on a farm in the most remote parts of Korea back in like the early 1900s. Okay. So for us to relate to that, it's like, oh, that just sounds weird, but it's just how it was. You get up, you work, you eat, you go to bed, you work again. That's just how it was. And so, you know, when I think about myself as a father, because I have a daughter now, and I think about, okay, you know, I try to do better, and we all try to do better than our predecessors. So I think our only frame of reference is our own parent.
Right.
Like my only frame of reference for being a good father to my daughter is how my father was. So it's like, well, my intention and my desire is to be a better father than my dad. Not that he was a bad father, not that he was a great father, but you know, that's the only frame of reference that honestly that I have. The only frame of reference that my father has is his father.
Right.
So as far as my dad is concerned, he has gone way above and beyond for his kids. You know, he moved to this country. He worked whatever job he had to. He put us all through school. He gave us an incredible opportunity to be in the United States, to you know, to have the freedom that this country provides, the opportunity this country provides. So do I have any right to be mad at my dad? No, I just don't. I'm just going to forgive him for everything. And you know what? That was like the biggest weight off my shoulders, to be honest with you. Just to say, you know what? He did the best he could. I'm doing the best I can. Is it possible my daughter grows up and she says, well, gosh, my dad was always working and he was hanging around with these gym people all the time, and I'm not going to be that parent, and you know what I mean? So I think it's just this sequence of parenting that we all try to be better than our predecessor. And so when I looked at it that way, you know, it just changed it completely for me. The perspective was very different for me when I look at it that way.
So forgiveness is the answer.
It is.
Yeah.
And looking at things too, and you change we talked about this a little bit a couple weeks ago about changing your past to affect your future. And if as a child, you know, with my mom, I did the same thing. My mom and I see things totally different in how she was as a mother and how I perceived her as a mother. So we had that dialogue a few years ago, and basically it came down to my mom's perspective of how she was as a mother and what I perceived as a child and a young lady. They were two totally different things.
See, that's what I'm talking about.
So
that's exactly what I'm talking about.
I finally said the same thing. I said, you know what? She did the best that she can do. She's my mom.
Exactly.
And my daughter's in the studio today, and I hope that there's certain things she can say about me, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And down the road, she'll probably do the same thing. You know, she'll forgive whatever was going on.
Right.
And she'll have a child someday and go do the same.
She'll
what
go do
you
the
just
same
said.
thing.
You know, it's just this big cycle of, but at least you're
Your
evolved
daughter's
enough.
gonna have kids,
but,
and her kid's gonna be like, Mom,
but
why can't you be like the other moms?
Right,
You know?
right. But at least you're aware of it, and I think that's the whole thing there too, is to get people becoming aware of that instead of going through our lives, you know, oh, my mom could have been better, and if it wasn't for her, I would be this person, or whatever, you know. I don't know.
It's all one big human continuum, you know. It's a big human continuum. We're on that continuum somewhere. We all land on that continuum somewhere, somehow, and it's never perfect, But you know, we all have this desire just to kind of improve upon the previous generation, and there's honor in that, you know, and I just think that we can't lose perspective of, you don't really know what your mom was going through when she was raising you. Just like my daughter could never imagine what I'm going through right now as a business person with other things going on. I'm fielding multiple attacks, you know, that's just how my life is. And if she grows up thinking, you know, my dad wasn't the best dad because he just was working all the time, that would be unfortunate. That breaks my heart to think that would be maybe what she thinks. But, you know, she'll understand someday too.
Right.
I do know that. And so I think I finally got to a point where maybe I get my dad now. You know, I'm at an age where I get it.
Yeah, it's so interesting, right? Because you get to a certain age, and I've gotten to that age too, you start looking and you go, oh my God, like, my father did not go out of his way to be my friend. He was trying to be my father.
Right.
What a shock, you know, because in this day and age, everybody wants to be their kid's friend.
Yeah.
And if you start comparing that, maybe he fails in that regard. But in reality, he passed the test incredibly well. It's society that has come down a little bit.
Yeah. So what do you think, like, if your father compares his, like, if he had a report card as being a dad, and he could give his dad a report card for his dad, like, how do you think he would compare?
Such an interesting conversation, because I actually had this conversation. Let me put it like this. My father was not really good at communicating, but he did communicate. He did try. And multiple times he's tried in the best way he knew how. He was always there. You know, you could trust him. He was all these things, and he always would tell you the truth. And he would always say, I want to hear what you have to say. Your opinion matters. I may not agree with it, but your opinion matters.
Yeah.
Go backwards to compare. He was light years ahead of his father.
Right.
Because their conversation was a shoe thrown across the room at his head. And that was the difference there. So he always said, I'm going to be able to allow my children to speak and have a voice. So, yeah, my father was massively improved over his father.
Right.
And so,
Right.
yeah.
And then, again, the generations continue to improve because, you know, I think as we gain more knowledge, we have more experience, we learn from our fathers and our mothers, and, you know, and that's part of their job, is like for them to make the mistakes so we don't make the mistakes. I'm trying to make some mistakes so my kids don't make mistakes.
Well, and then with Joe, he always says, I never had my own kids, right? He always says that, I never had my own kids. But I said he's been a foster dad. He's been a stepdad to other children over the years. And he's improved his communication because of my daughter. So even though, you know, he might think, I don't have any relevance because I didn't have my own children, he has exceeded his dad as far as he can talk to my daughter in a way I can't. And you know, so I go, okay, well it's a good balance for me as a mom, having a male, because she hasn't had a lot of good male role models, not good strong ones. My dad died yet when she was too young. He would have been a great one. But so for her to see that a good man, and that's good to me and to her, he's done a great job.
That's
So
extremely important.
Well, thank you.
That's extremely important. But it's not just our dads, it's all the people that were role models, men and women in our lives.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, to look at it from that perspective as children or young adults, impossible for us to know what they're going through in their era, just like it's impossible for the kids coming up to understand us. Like I hear this conversation all the time, you know, oh, the kids these days are so soft and they're lazy and blah, blah, blah. We don't get them, they don't get us. Let's just leave it at that. But they're going to try to do better than we did. That's just how humans work. It's the human continuum. The human continuum continues for the better.
So you're a pretty stoic guy. But tell me what it's like, the dynamic of having a daughter. What is that like? Like, you see your daughter. Like, what kind of thing? And then you're like, I got to go to work. And you're with your daughter, but yet there's like 5 business things on your mind.
Yeah.
You know, so you're trying to be present, and yet in order to take care of this child, you need to go fight all these other dragons too, that people are saying, okay, listen, in order to be a good father, you need to be totally present. And you're like, well, in order to be a good father, I also need to produce something here at the same time. So tell me about that dynamic.
Well, I think a lot of people put a lot of value in spending time with your kids, and I don't dispute that. But because I'm in a unique position to affect a lot of people, you know, that's a balance that's trickier for me, because I know that I can do the best thing for my daughter in a couple ways. I can spend time with her, be engaged with her, and I do my best to do that when I'm with her. But then when it's time to fight the dragons, like, I do feel like, you know, if I'm successful at my dragon fighting, then I could maybe create something that's a little bit better for not just her, but like that generation, you know?
Right.
So as much as I'd love to just like give everything to my daughter, that's, I don't feel it's the right thing, honestly. You know, it just depends.
Right.
If I were a sushi chef, you know, like, I would just do the minimum at work to not get fired, and I would spend every minute with my daughter outside of that. But I'm not, you know. I influence a lot of people in a positive way.
Right.
I have the opportunity to influence more people in a positive way. So, of course, my daughter gets everything that I've got, that I can give her. But when I'm not with her, I'm giving everything I've got to her still, because I feel like I can do that in other ways too that are more macro.
Right.
You know? So I'm always fighting for her. It's just sometimes it's with her and sometimes it's not with her. Either way, I'm fighting.
Yeah.
We model for our children. They watch. You know, when you made the comment before about the generational thing in between generations, they do watch, and they may not agree, but they're taking it in.
Oh yeah.
All the time. And I agree with what you said. You can't always be everything to your child. You're doing them a disservice, because they are watching you as their adult, as their parent, and you have to live a certain way. And if you can't provide, or like you said, you're giving to other people.
Well, it's not just providing, but you say modeling. Like, you know, I'd like my daughter to grow up giving her time to a profession or however she wants to contribute to the world in a way that helps a lot of people, you know. And so is that more or less valuable than me spending one-on-one time with her? It's impossible to say.
Right.
I don't even try to figure it out, because I just know that I don't know.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's an honest answer too.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's okay to say that.
Yeah.
When did you move to the United States? How old are you?
I was 8 months old.
8 months old?
Mm-hmm.
You have brothers and sisters?
2 brothers, 1 sister.
Older, younger?
1 older brother, 1 younger brother, who is my business partner, and then younger sister.
So your mom and dad moved here, and they had 4 young kids.
Mm-hmm.
And did they even speak English?
No English, no family, no friends. You could say no money. $35 doesn't go a long ways.
That's no money.
Pretty much no money. Clothes on their backs. It was tough for us, you know. It was tough. So when people take for granted what they have here in this country, it's frustrating. You know, it's tough in other places in the world, you know. And there are places in the world where even if you worked as hard as you could and you had the best, you know, the best business process and ideas and execution, it doesn't matter. You're just stuck and you're trapped.
Right.
That's not the case here. You can just walk out that door and do anything you want. And that doesn't exist in a lot of places. And it may not exist for much longer in this country. That's a whole other topic. But I do appreciate what we went through, because I wake up every morning being grateful for the opportunity, just to even have an opportunity, really.
So what do you think steps in the way between people and their goals? Because, I mean, we know people that are given quite a bit, certainly more than 4 young children with no money and not being able to speak English. They're born with a lot more, and they come up with so many excuses and the victimhood that we constantly hear about. What do you think separates them from their goals?
Man, you know, if I can dissect that question if I have a guy and he tells me his deal. You know, I'm pretty good at like identifying, like, this is your problem. I'll tell you a recent one, actually. A guy came to me and he said, 30 years old. So he's right at that edge of what is defined as millennials, right? Very smart, very capable, but very feminine. You know, I actually asked him, "Are you gay?" Just to ask him. No, I'm not gay. Okay, that's fine. If you are, that's okay too. But he had very feminine characteristics, and I asked him, "What do you think your problem is?" He says, "I'm too nice." And I said, "I don't think you're too nice. I think you're imbalanced. I don't think you have the proper balance of masculine and feminine." And so that kind of like, it threw him for a loop because no one's ever told him that.
No one had the guts to. They
Because
probably wanted to.
it's not proper to say that, right? You can't say that anymore because we're all the same, right? Bullshit. Oh, sorry. So it depends. And so in some cases, I'll tell you, I would say for 90% of people under the age of 30, it's one of two things. You don't understand how masculine and feminine energy works together, A. B, you're an addict, either to Facebook, Instagram, or just your phone in general. That covers 90% of people under the age of 30.
Yeah, it actually does.
That's true.
Yeah, that's true. Let's start a men's group.
I'm down. Yeah.
I mean, you already kind of did. It's Super League, right?
Yeah.
But you know, that's interesting because, and I was going to talk to Sue about this too, to throw it in. The women in your Super League are insane. They train so hard and they put in so much work. I'm not saying that they can't for some reason, but what I'm saying is, let's take that 30 years old and under group. The women are outworking the men.
They are.
That of what I notice. Am I wrong?
We've got some. Well, it's pretty equal. You know, the guys and the girls are equally crazy. But I actually, this is a question I have for Heidi. Actually, like, I haven't really pushed myself that hard yet. You know, I'm working myself up to that. But where does that come from?
It comes from in here.
Yeah.
In here. I don't know. It just comes from. I don't want to fail. I don't want to. For me, I just do it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's interesting. It's really fascinating to me, actually, because I see people digging deeper, and they tell me this. They tell me that. If you set a goal, and that's the other thing. If I set my goal, that this is what I'm going to do in this amount of time, I will do whatever. I'll puke. I'll pass it. I will not quit because I said this is what I've set for myself. No, it's for myself. I'm not comparing myself because, like you said, exactly,
we have some super athletes in there that, right?
Yeah.
But for me, internally, it's my personality that I'm not gonna beat. I don't want to beat myself. I want to at least do what my set goal was, and then of course you do that. And now I want to push even more. I think it's to push myself just to see how far I can get away with it.
Yeah. So that's kind of what we're trying to do. We're trying to create the format and the tech and the app and all that stuff in a way that brings that out in people. So I'm trying to learn how we can better do that.
Well, and the age factor too for me. I mean, I'm not that young. I'm 52. I'll be 53 this year. So for me, that drive is there too, because I say, you know what, I don't. You're 30 something. That's cool. I can still compete and I can still do well and respectable.
Yeah.
And it sets an example for other women that are my age older, the young girls that come in and say, oh, I can't do this. Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Yes, you can.
Yeah. So we've had so many awesome people come through and they do things that they said, I didn't think I could do that. We literally, and this is not a made up stat, but half of the people that compete in power, which is the 3-rep max, half of them every weekend set PRs.
Wow.
They lift things they've never lifted before. And they train for this thing. And they're in the gym every week for years. And it's like, I have never lifted that much before in my life. And I don't know what the sauce we have is, but we're just going to keep fine-tuning that secret sauce, because if we can bring that out in people, then I can die a happy man. I can pass that on to my children. I can pass it on to my children's friends. I feel like that's something that, has real value for people.
I think it's the point that you can do it. Like, I think we go... I'll speak for myself. We go through life and people will put their beliefs on us and say, you're not good enough for that, or you're too old, you're too young, you're too whatever. And I think when you do something like that and you've got the positive energy behind it, say, you can do this, we're here to support you, because you know, Sue's there, she's racking,
Yeah.
Kate's there, you know, there's a huge support there.
Yeah.
You kind of go, okay, well, I'll do this, and you don't want to disappoint them either, because now they're there going, you can do this. So there's like, okay, well, even if I thought I couldn't do it, I'm gonna freaking do it now, you know. So it's just this, and I think it's the community and it's the belief that people believe, and it's fun. It's a fun activity.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's good. That's good to know. It's really interesting.
So Jay, we're getting close to
Yep.
ending here.
Yep.
I want to ask you a quick question, and then I want you to finish up and
Yep.
tell everybody a little bit more about Super League.
Sure.
All right, so here's the question. Let's say you have a choice. You don't really reach the goals that you want to,
Okay.
but you get to live to be 100 years old. Or you get to reach your goals, at least one of them,
Okay.
and you die in the next 3 years.
B. Yeah, it's easy for me.
That's a strong answer, especially with somebody with a kid. That's
Tomorrow.
yeah.
Take me
Excellent.
away tomorrow.
Excellent.
If I reach my goal today, I'm good. Yeah.
Perfect. I knew you were going to say that. So I want to finish up with you. Tell
Yes.
everybody real quick the Super League, the divisions you have, and what they can expect, and maybe when your next event is.
Sure. So Super League is every Sunday. Super League Sunday, we call it church. That might offend some people. I'm not apologizing. But
Jim
but
is always my church.
yeah, but we worship on Sundays, and we do it together, and we go through it together, and we encourage each other. So the events happen virtually around the world every week. We have an average of 10 to 15 countries every weekend. That number keeps going up. But we are basically we have 3 different formats. We have power, which is like powerlifting, combine, which is like CrossFit, and then the new one, which we haven't launched yet, but we'll launch that soon. But we basically try to accommodate and serve as many people as possible. So no matter what your lifting style is, no matter what your fitness goal is, we have a competitive track for you. We call them all warpaths. And everything is done through the app, you know. And so my brother developed the app, and we basically diverged when we were 15. I wanted to be a bodybuilder, be a gym guy. He wanted to be a tech guy. He built a company, sold it to ADP for like $1 billion, and so now he's like, you know what? I'm just going to do this Super League thing with you. So that's why the tech is so good, because he's as good as it gets. He's the top of the food chain in terms of tech development. And I happen to have this gym in Vegas where I know a lot of people, so it works out great. And so that's one of the reasons why we're growing so quickly. But our goal is to keep expanding and to reach as many people as possible. And now that we've really identified, because we're trying to find our target market, just like any business. You put that searchlight out, and it's like, where's my target market? It's actually the kids. Yeah.
Perfect.
It's not the Kai
We
Greens.
can use it.
Yeah, we can. I think we all
Yeah.
There's a lot
can.
of young people coming into the gym lately, I noticed.
Yeah.
So and I love it.
We're pushing hard. That is our main mission, and that's something that I have not shared outside of our internal team. Honestly, like, we don't talk about that. You know, we don't talk about our main mission being about fighting this disease of addiction that is just being generally accepted by everybody. Not only are people not really talking about it, but nobody's doing a damn thing about it.
True.
Nobody's trying to be part of the solution. A lot of people are trying to be part of the problem. It's like, hey, let's launch this business and be huge on Instagram. You're part of the problem. You know?
I totally agree. Yeah, that's so true. We even talk about that in therapy. Like, everybody's just going along with it. I'm like, can we stop it? Because this is an addiction here. I mean, you know, if you want kids to, like, say, do their chores real fast, give them cocaine then. You know, I mean, if we're totally into pushing,
Right.
you know, addictions on kids, let's go that route too, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm glad you're calling it out and actually finding a solution, which is nice, because most people don't talk about solutions.
And you know what else I like about it? I'm a warrior.
Yes,
I'm
you
a
are.
warrior on there.
You're a
Like,
warrior.
I've never been called a warrior, so I'm like,
So I'll let me just wrap it up with this. So Super League has created something called the Hall of Warriors. It's a virtual hall where everyone who competes in Super League is immortalized in the Hall of Warriors. You'll never die, because warriors never die. That's one of our taglines. And so
We need
your
shirts.
so your footage, your score, your story, your message that you want to give to your daughter or anyone else out there to follow you. My goal is to build the Hall of Warriors, this virtual Hall of Warriors, this virtual memorial of these people that are willing to come in and spill blood and sweat and soul and whatever else in the gym. These are the warriors, you know. These are the ones that that want to fight for it. And so we want to immortalize all of our Super League athletes. We call them warriors in the Hall of Warriors. And that's also something we haven't quite put out there yet. But you're going to be you're going to exist somewhere for eternity.
Awesome.
And that's something that I think is also important for athletes, is to know that, you know, you're never going to die.
Legacy, one of my favorite words.
And that's why I'll take B, because, you know, someone will put me in there. They'll put some old bodybuilding picture in there or something of me, you know.
So thanks for being here today.
Thanks for
It's
having
always
me.
fun talking to you,
Yeah.
and thanks for changing the world.
Thank you.
Jea Jung,
Thank you.
everybody.
Right.
This has been the Rise Above Show. I am Joe Perroni.
I'm Heidi Mancini and Jea Jung.